Hey, welcome back. I'll talk about Sherlock Holmes today a little bit. I'm almost done with the collection. I really like it. I like Stephen Fry. He's a really good. He does all the characters and stuff, and he's doing like Italian accents and Russian accents, and yeah, the audiobook for the complete Sherlock Holmes collection is really good. I don't think it's the complete collection though, because I was reading like it ends with his last bow, the audiobook I'm reading. But then I was reading somewhere like, oh, there are other Tinder 50% off Tinder today. Oh, great, that's great. There are more after his last bow, and I'm like, I thought this was the complete collection. So I don't know. But yeah, I just read a story where Mycroft comes back, and he's like, Holmes, you gotta help me with this international incident or whatever of this like Navy guy. And guess what? Holmes cracks it. He cracks the case. So guess what? I'm writing a story. I'm gonna write my detective story. I think when I was originally writing it, it was gonna be like a police detective, but I think I'm gonna make him a private detective. And I don't know. This is spoilers, but who cares? Because nobody's gonna read the story anyway. Yeah, I mentioned it before. I think where like I'm gonna write a story because it's like a trope where like Monk is a detective who has OCD, and like his OCD makes him a good detective. And there's like people who are like, I don't know, it's just a trope. And so I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if a social anxiety person was a good detective for some reason? Because the social anxiety was like a detective superpower. So I was trying to think how that would work, and my idea was that you have a detective. So here's my changes that I've made. I think I'm going to make the detective like a lot older, and he's going to be like 50s or 60-year-old detective. And in his younger days, he was like Sherlock Holmes. He was like amazing. He was the best detective ever. He could deduce things from like your sleeves. Oh, I see your sleeve is rolled up. That means like you're the murderer. But now he's older and he's like kind of terrible, and he tries to do his Sherlock stuff and it doesn't work. Because of the plan. I don't know how to make this work, but I think I can. The plan is to make it like social anxiety is like a thing that's happening now, and it was not really in the past that much. So that's the key that he's missing, is like, oh, I'm not taking social anxiety into account because a part of social anxiety is like being aware that this is something I noticed. I'm also watching the Sherlock TV show. Sherlock notices things about other people that they don't notice. Like, oh, you're wearing this color lipstick. So that means this thing. But like social anxiety people know. They're very self-aware. So they know why they do certain things, and they know how it appears to other people. So sometimes they'll do things to make it themselves like appear normal, and that would throw off Sherlock because he's having the mindset that like other people aren't really thinking about this kind of thing about themselves. They're just like, oh, I brush my teeth in the morning at 7 o'clock just because like that's just what I do. But a social anxiety person would be like, well, I brush my teeth at 7 o'clock because my wife, like, I don't want her to see me brush my teeth or something. I don't know. There's something there. I still have to think about it more and write it. But yeah, that would be funny because then I could kind of, I could have him like do things and be kind of like Sherlock and then just be completely wrong. I would like doing that. Like, oh, your umbrella is wet. That means that like you were out last night. And it's like, no, that's not right. Oh, this used to work in the 90s. When nobody had social anxiety. I don't know. That's the thing that I'm not really sure about. Like, am I really gonna say, oh, social anxiety is such a big thing now and it never used to be? I don't know. There's something there though, and I think I'm gonna try to write it. But yeah, I've been watching the TV show. Couple things. Like, now I'm a book reader and I'm like, this doesn't fit exactly with the books. And all the adaptations of Sherlock Holmes, the big thing that they always seem to do is they make him kind of like a misanthrope and kind of like, oh, everybody else is stupid and I'm so smart, and like, oh, I can't understand why everybody is so stupid. And they make him like super arrogant. And in the TV show Sherlock, he like has no friends and everybody kind of hates him. In the book, I don't know. Maybe in the beginning it's a little bit like that in like the first couple stories, because I kind of forget. But in the recent stories, like, everybody kind of likes him. And Watson even makes a point a couple times of being like, when Sherlock wants to, he can kind of turn up the charm and people like actually like him. He's like, he can be really personable. And I know that's like, it's what a sociopath can do, but, yeah, a line in the TV show that kind of made me cringe is like, one of the characters is like, you're a psychopath, and then Sherlock's like, I'm a high functioning sociopath, like, do your research or something. And I was like, ugh, I don't like that line. He's not really a sociopath in the books. He's just he likes, the only thing that interests him is solving crime. He likes Watson. He likes Watson a lot. They're good friends. He's never like, oh, Watson, you stupid idiot. And Watson likes him. Watson's never like, oh my god, this Holmes guy. I can't believe how mean he is to me. And how arrogant he is. I remember even in the first couple stories, Holmes makes a point to be like, I don't really like explaining like the magic of it, because then it's, well, maybe that's part of it. In the beginning, he's like, I don't like explaining my like reasoning, because then it's like a magic trick and you're like, oh, that's not interesting. The thing that makes me interesting is the fact that I can deduce all these things from a single detail. I can go through the whole chain of deductions and reach a conclusion, and once I explain every link of the chain, it makes perfect sense. Like, just when you explain how a magic trick works, you're like, oh, obviously that's how you did it. But when you don't know how it works, you're like, whoa, it's magic. So Sherlock's like, I don't like explaining it. Like, because then people are like, oh, I could do that. That's what Watson says a lot. He's like, whenever you explain your reasoning, I totally understand, but how you get there is always a mystery to me, or whatever. So I mean, it's good. I like the books a lot. The Baskervilles was probably the best one, I think. 85%. Wait, what time do I have? Oh, a couple more minutes. So wait, what did I write about Sherlock Holmes? Yeah, I mean, Mycroft is more of the misanthrope. But yeah, Sherlock Holmes is like a normal guy in the book who's just like good at deducing things. He's not like a superhero, he's like a magician who's just studied the art of deduction and just like logical trains of thought, like, oh, if this happened, then this must have happened, and then if that must have happened, then this must have happened. But he's not like a supercomputer. Like sometimes they portray him as like that meme of like the mathematical formulas, and he's like calculating like, oh, he's just like a normal person who can deduce things. That's it. And he's like, why can't you guys just do this? If you just thought for a second, like, this is just obviously what happened. And then we're all like, oh yeah, that does make sense. But whenever you do like a modern day Sherlock Holmes, it's like he's like a super genius. I just don't get that impression from the book. He's just like kind of a weirdo who's obsessed with crime stuff and the and he's like obsessed with deducing things from specific facts. Oh, if the door was locked on 8 p.m., then he couldn't have left, obviously. We know that this is true. But he did leave. That's the mystery. That's like all the stories. That was the last one. That was the one with the Italian people that I was just reading, where he was like, I like that part at the beginning where he was like, a man went into the room on the first day and he hasn't left for 10 days, but he did leave once on the first night. So he's like, oh, so we don't know if it's the same man in the room tonight that it was on the first night, because nobody saw him when he left and came back. Oh, good deduction. I don't know. Elementary. It is nice when he says, my dear Watson. He never says elementary, my dear Watson, but he just says elementary, and he says, my dear Watson, all the time. That's nice. Like, he likes Watson. He's like, my dear Watson, you're a good friend. It's interesting that Watson gets married in like the third story, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because then he moves out. He doesn't live with Sherlock anymore after like the second story. And so that's obviously like Arthur Conan Doyle being like, oh, I'm not going to write that many stories. Let's just have him get married and move away. But then it was like a big hit, and he was like, oh, I got to keep writing stories. So then he has to like come up with reasons for them to be together, or he's just like, oh, this one takes place in the past, before I got married to Mary Morriston or whatever, because she's one of the victims in like the second story, and Watson sees her and he's like, oh, I like her. My Zoomy buddies are texting me. Okay, that's it. Yeah, Sherlock Holmes is good. All I wanna do, zoom. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. The TV show's like, I watched the first 2 episodes. of the Sherlock TV show. It's on Crackle. I wonder, like, definitively what's the best adaptation that people say of Sherlock Holmes. It's probably not the. I mean, Benedict Cumberbatch is a good actor, and so is what's his name, Martin Freeman or whatever. He's good too. They're good, but the stories are a little bit whatever. And I feel like they don't focus as much on Sherlock's personality as they should. It's more focused on the actual, like, mysteries, which, I mean, the books are too, but it's hard when you only have 3 episodes a season, like the TV show. I do feel like if you're gonna make a good Sherlock adaptation, it would be like a 10-episode TV show per season. Elementary. Okay, see you tomorrow.